Hello and welcome to the Annie Altman Show, the podcast, Season 5. Welcome to the 4th episode in the Compassion C series. Today I'm here with Hyatt Gonser talking about compassion and interconnection and how it connects us. Connecting all the C's here. Hyatt is currently in Austin and currently stealth camping. He's an explorer of many different games and interests, and I'm really glad to be podcasting with you. Thanks for being here.
It's super nice to be here. I'm glad you invited me.
Can you move the microphone in a little bit? I think it got moved a bit.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, just saying, really glad to be here. Glad to be invited to this. This is fun.
You're a fun person to talk to about things because you're willing to look at different perspectives, I feel like, with a minimal amount of feelings, with a very sort of neutral, oh, what's this thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just like real curiosity is something that's big for me, and like unbiased curiosity.
Unbiased in terms of without a judgment or without some sort of preconceived
like without
notion about it?
without an agenda, without some preconceived notion.
Yeah, without an agenda. I'd love for you to share a little bit more in your own words about you, about what makes you happy, what you like doing, what helps you be compassionate with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that all that probably changes all the time, but right now, like you mentioned, I've been stealth camping in Austin for the past month and a half, so just kind of have a hammock set up in some woods right now, and I just love the city and have a lot of friends here. So I think community is a big thing that drives me, like human interaction. And recently a lot of play, a lot of flow arts and things like that, spending a lot of time in nature. And also I've been on a raw vegan journey for the last 5 years or so, and I notice food has a big impact on my health and my happiness, and my mentality. So those are a few things.
We met originally at the Fruit Festival.
Yep.
In the Woodstock Fruit Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about fruitarianism. We recorded a video at some point, I recall. I appreciate you calling it a journey and again, that perspective to look at things as what's happening now. And again, being less this is my agenda of what it must be now, and I am this forever, and here's what's happening. I know for me in my raw vegan journey, I got into that and got really dogmatically attached and went into a lot of patterns of orthorexia and other disordered eating and things with my period and my cycling and how to figure out balancing, okay, well, how do I feel my most me? And I love sauerkraut and sprouts and brewing kombucha. I love fruit. I love seeds. And also I love purple sweet potatoes. And I let go of veganism personally for me right now, and how to have compassion through all these journeys. And you're someone who, I remember talking when we talked about fruitarianism, that a lot of, in my experience, talking to fruitarians or anyone who is, often people can get very I ate only fruit and this cured my cancer and I'm great now, or I ate only meat and this cured my cancer and I'm great now, and everyone must do this. And I feel like you are someone who's here's what I like to do.
Yeah. I think I'm definitely more that way now than in the beginning. I think it did all those wonderful things for me too, and I think I was like that a little bit more. I was like, this is the human diet. This is how we have to eat if we want to be perfectly healthy and and spiritual, and you're not going to reach the highest levels of spirituality unless you have a clean body with this diet.
Totally.
But yeah, I feel so much less dogmatic about it also. And I definitely haven't been eating the way that I used to in that way. Like I'm eating a lot of cooked food right now. And although it's still kind of like my standard that I want to be eating raw vegan, I don't usually. And a practice I've been doing lately is posting everything that I eat on Instagram and sharing how much money I spend, because I don't really want to show people what I'm eating every day. And this feels like a practice of vulnerability and just like accepting that like people are just going to see everything that I eat, even though I really don't want them to know that I'm eating it, and how much I'm spending on food, because I also don't want people to know that I'm spending a buttload of money, more than I want to be, on food every day.
Ooh, I really appreciate you sharing both of those things, because I feel I posted some what I eat in a day videos and then took them down, and I relate to that sense of vulnerability in sharing things about food and about money, and how much conditioning there is to say that it's dirty and shameful. Sex, birth, death, those fall in, like pooping, all of these things in this category of things all humans do, and most humans are like, no, we're gonna just not talk about that one, and we're gonna
Yeah.
just act like we're not all eating every day. And then I feel like it creates all this shame around it. Was it a hurdle to like, what was it like to first start posting about it versus how it is now?
Yeah. In the beginning, well, first of all, I also did it as an accountability practice. Like, I think I am eating a little better. Like this year, for the first time in a few years, I've eaten things that aren't vegan. And I imagine that if I wasn't posting this every day, I would probably have eaten more things that are like processed, possibly not even vegan. So it's kind of helped me in that way. But also, yeah, in the beginning, it was like, oh God, dang it, I have to post this. Like I'm making myself post it, even though I really don't want to. And now, yeah, it just feels like there's less shame around it. It's kind of like whatever. I'm just like eating better. But also when I have a day where I'm just eating a bunch of junk, I still post it, and it doesn't feel like there's as much shame around it. Yeah, I saw this quote that was like, shame just can't survive being spoken to. It can't survive compassion. So like when you share what you're ashamed of and openly speak it, then it pretty much just like starts to die with shame around it.
Yes. Brene Brown has some beautiful things too about shame and secrecy and keeping it in the shadows. And I love that it can't survive compassion.
Yeah.
And that part of with this theme of connection and interconnection and compassion that says, all of the humans I have yet to talk to about eating and the humans they've talked to about eating have had moments of being like, fuck, I didn't want to eat that, or fuck, this is how I want to eat, or fuck, I'm caring a lot about what I'm eating and not about these other things, or fuck, that tastes really good, or wow, I really like that thing, I really dislike that thing. These universal experiences that people are then, especially with social media and things, and also, like you brought up, that dogma in the spiritual community of I have to be perfectly pure, and so to do that I must be a breatharian and only eat sunlight.
Yeah.
Like, what? Hold on, what? You know who's like a human? We all are.
Yeah.
I'm reminding myself.
Yeah. Feels humbling also.
To post it and share, and to it's also like you're accepting those feelings of shame. You're not shaming the shame, and you're still
Right.
taking action.
Yeah.
What do you feel you're most you eating?
Um, just like really juicy, sweet fruit typically. Yeah, like melons. If I just like eat melons in a day for like a week straight, then I feel like the best version of myself as far as like consuming food. Salt is kind of my biggest struggle right now. I feel like if I could give up one food thing forever, it would be salt.
Because you don't feel good when you consume
Yeah,
it?
I don't feel good consuming it, and it's also so addicting for me. It's like a yeah, huge addiction. And yeah, don't feel good doing it.
Food stuff is really challenging. I feel like food and sex things come up so much with shame
Definitely.
and with these things where there's all sorts of dogmas in all the different directions about like this is what humans should do, this is how this practice goes,
Yeah.
and then they will outright disagree with each other. You could look into Ayurvedic practices that say raw foods are harder to process. And then you can look at people who have studied raw food for decades and they'll say cooked foods are harder to process. And it's like, well, you've both studied this. Like you both
Yeah.
have put in different kinds of practices here and also your different bodies. So maybe you would need different things.
Yep.
So then how to
Yeah, I
come
think
and listen to your body of like, that was like, what do you like? You do seem
exactly.
very happy when I've seen you with melons or pictures of melons.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think I don't really care about much like raw food literature or like watching videos anymore or anything. I feel like I know what my specific body likes, and I kind of just listen to my body and my intuition over anything else. And that's kind of with anything as far as like spirituality goes and my views. I yeah don't feel very interested in like other people's opinions now very much.
You care more about your own mind body connection.
Yeah, and for me, and I don't really care about my opinions for other people either.
Because you can't experience their mind body connection.
Exactly.
I really resonate with that too. And then how to like be curious about other people's and learn from other people's journeys and also really stay true to mine for that cliche of it. Like, okay, well, what do I want? What feels good to me? Does that relate to for like the stealth camping of you being like, okay, this is what I want to do for me that I feel most connected to myself and supports me in having days of feeling more connected to myself.
Yeah, definitely. I think ever since I was a teenager, like 14 or 16 years old, I think I just envisioned living in a tent somewhere and never having to pay bills and never having a job. Uh, and that sense of freedom and like courage, I guess, um, something that has just stuck with me. It's definitely a super scary thing at first. I feel like I've done this enough times now to be more comfortable with stuff like this, stealth camping in cities or going um, to different places out of the country and like camping, not really having a plan. But yeah, it always takes a little bit of courage and there's always some discomfort at sometimes. Um, but it feels like that's when I feel like my best version is in the times when I can think about being like homeless or not having a home and I'm just kind of wandering. Those are like the most memorable times for me.
What about it feels like, what is that feeling like in your body?
I mean, I noticed like a lot of calm and peacefulness and just there's like not much heaviness anywhere other than maybe a little in my right shoulder, but yeah, it feels really calm and easy.
Whereas when you think about having like a home or a room in a home or an apartment or something,
Mm-hmm.
that feels less easy.
If I think about it more, then yeah, like when I first think about having a nice little room and a space to do what I want, I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds great. But then I think about like having to create income and having to create something that sustains that lifestyle that uh, currently I'm probably not going to want to do. And so yeah, it seems like the sort of negatives, the cons outweigh the pros or the positives for me in that situation.
And so having the courage to make that compassionate choice for yourself and do what actually feels good to you long term.
Mm-hmm. I don't even know about long term, but definitely like
For this next month of life, week of life.
Yeah, for like the next month of life. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I think I've definitely labeled myself a vulnerability junkie at times, and just like noticing where I'm afraid, and then like, especially if it's something that I want like a direction I want to go in my life, but I'm afraid, then I definitely want to explore that fear, and yeah, kind of be in a vulnerable state with it.
I love that vulnerability junkie.
Mm-hmm.
Like a compassion junkie. Let me explore connection and compassion from all of the angles.
Mm-hmm.
So loving fear and having
Yeah,
compassion for that
definitely.
fear. Say
I
more
think
about
it,
that leaning into, and also I'd be curious to hear how you navigate really listening to yourself about when are you leaning into the fear and the discomfort, and when are you potentially being a discomfort junkie. I'm totally asking because I've done that
yeah.
one.
Yeah. I lean, I mean, I try to lean into the fear when I know that it's gonna like improve my life. There are things that like I don't lean into that I'm afraid of, that I think could be detrimental. But I don't know. I guess I'd have to have a situation. It's funny because food comes into my head. I'm like, well, I'm afraid of like eating the same way that I am for a long time, but I still seem to give into that.
Afraid of eating the same way, like afraid of eating not raw vegan?
Or, I mean, mostly raw vegan, yeah.
Or you're afraid that you'll continue to eat raw vegan and that feels.
No, I'm afraid that I'll continue to not eat raw vegan, or at least in a way that I think is really good for me. Like I'll just keep eating in a way that makes me feel not my best and a little sluggish, and like I won't be able to stop myself ever or something like that.
I resonate with that. I definitely went through, I actually did when I was living in LA 2 sessions with someone who's come on the podcast twice of Whitney, shout out Whitney Catalano, who at that time was working as an anti-diet dietitian and talking about food freedom and how to explore fears around food and around rules with food. I had so many, and I still unpack and learn about rules around food of like how much and what kind and what combinations and what timing and all of all of these fears that I put onto it because of then saying what she came to, which really blew my mind, was saying so much of the stuff with food that people don't want to talk about comes down to body image and comes down to fear of death and life, because we're wanting to control these things we can't really control.
Yeah, body image definitely like strikes me as something that is very deep in me, and something I want to maintain. Like if I don't eat raw and if I don't eat light, then I'm like, oh no, I want my flat stomach back. I want, I don't want all these breakouts and things like that. So that seemed to be a big source. Like I want to be attractive. I think that's the core thing, is I want to be attractive and approachable. Yeah,
For connection with
for
people.
connection.
You're
Yeah,
saying,
for connection, and I think like a big one for me is also romance.
what if you ended up with a partner who wasn't a raw vegan?
Yeah, I think I'd be okay with
What if you
that.
ended up with a carnivore? I would laugh so hard, Hyatt. I gotta be honest. I don't know if that would happen.
Yeah,
Anything could happen.
I think it could happen for a little bit. I don't think it would be sustainable for me long term, but I could probably date a carnivore for a few months, perhaps.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing vulnerably about that desire for attraction and being attractive and partnership and romance and connection, and also being open to talk about body image, because I feel like that's another thing that people are like, no, we're not supposed to act like we care about this, or oh, I'm so spiritual so I'm not supposed to care about how anything is perceived in the physical. Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, that's my biggest struggle right now. Is my biggest insecurity right now is my teeth, actually, and like the health of my teeth have been declining over the last few years, and it's becoming like more noticeable. And so that's probably the thing that's in my mind the most, as far as like insecurities for me.
Because of how it looks? How do they feel?
Yeah, because they don't feel bad. They only feel bad when I've eaten like really crappy food. Um, and I can still eat a lot of cooked food and they'll still feel fine. And honestly, like I'm so not even that concerned about the health of my teeth. I'm really only concerned about being attractive and having a nice smile. Um, yeah,
Because of
and not
how
having,
much smiles connect us.
yeah,
I can see that, like, oh, this is some way of how someone's gonna perceive me.
definitely. And if I have a smile that doesn't look that great, I feel like people can be repelled so easily, especially in like romantic attraction.
Hmm. Through the camera here, people in the YouTube comments, I don't. At no point was I like, oh my gosh, Hyatt's teeth. Those are.
Yeah, and I think the fear is that like they've been slowly declining more and more, and then it's sort of like a future thing as well. It's like, oh, maybe like I'm okay now, but in like 2 years, definitely gonna be, yeah, not very wanted or something or appealing.
Hmm. I wonder if that's some sort of barometer, some sort of body message about, could be food related or like sleep or hydration or some specific nutrient. Or I feel like with that mind body interconnection, I my curiosity of how do I be less biased is to say, well, what is the lesson here? What is the learning? What is the message?
Yeah, I'm sure I've made so many messages and meanings out of it so many times. I imagine I'm still learning from it. But I think more and more I stop putting a whole lot of like meaning or like this idea that I'm learning something from anything. I imagine I'm always learning something from everything, um, but I don't like try to look for it or something.
I get that. And I'm glad you brought that part up of the other pendulum extreme of forcing meaning onto something, or
Mm,
of putting something on it that's not there because of like this need for meaning.
yeah,
I've totally done that. I'd still do that.
I still do that too.
It's a weird too of like that pendulum of using it as a way to be maybe less attached to something, some physical, mental, emotional insecurity, blockage, arousal, like some
Mm,
feeling of things. And then it's like, how do you use that to be less attached to that, and also without getting super attached to like, okay, well then everything has a meaning, and what is the learning,
yeah,
and what is the connection of this thing, and how to play and explore. And going back to what you said about freedom, like how to still have that as a something at the forefront.
mhm.
What does that mean to you, or how do those relate, like freedom and compassion? No big deal. We're just making meaning out of words that have big meanings already attached to them.
Yeah. As somebody said, can't remember who, that humans are just like meaning-making machines. I really like that. But yeah,
So
compassion and freedom. I feel like for me, I feel like I can be compassionate towards pretty much anyone other than myself 100% of the time. So for me, like I think more freedom lies in being more compassionate with myself, which I think for me, I personally enjoy doing more like shadow work kind of stuff to get more in touch with myself and bring more light and freedom to myself. So doing like sort of psychotherapy sort of um, work and a lot of emotional work, and going into vulnerability and fear is my preferred method for like getting in touch with myself and having more compassion for myself.
share more about that first part of compassion for yourself versus for others, if you
Yeah,
will.
I think just because like I can't, maybe on some level I can partially get a sense of someone's experience, but I can't really feel what's going on for other people. Like I don't feel their bodily pain, and like I don't really hear their mental stuff going on in my mind. So it's like I'm not really attached to that. And yeah, in this moment, the word like a burden comes up for me. Having this my own body and my own mind is like burdensome. Like, oh, I have to deal with this stuff. And if I do the sort of wrong thing that I don't think is good for me, then I'm gonna have to face my own body and my own mind. And then I can get judgmental because it's like, oh, now I feel like crap. Now I have to deal with this. And now you screwed up, Hyatt. Like, yeah.
Super well phrased and super physical, tangible of that, the burden feeling of being in a body and in a monkey mind chatter, and that
Yeah,
we're the
it's
only ones with that all the time.
right. Like I can be compassionate for you because I don't feel what's going on for you.
Compassionate detachment. It's so you feel like that's where it comes from then, where it can be easier to talk to, or the ease of compassion for others is because we're not feeling their pain directly.
I
Whereas
don't think
with
that's
us,
how it
we
is.
feel our pain directly, and so it is more challenging. Or
I
maybe
think
it's
that's
also
a
just that
huge
it's like
part.
constantly there, like there's no getting away from ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a huge part. I imagine there's other things that can cause not being compassionate because I see people that aren't compassionate to other people. Um, and, you know, they get upset and intolerant towards other people's behavior. And I imagine that that happens to me too, although like really rarely. So just for me personally, it seems like that's the battle for me is that I have to deal with myself. I don't really have to deal with like what you're doing necessarily. Like 100% of the time, I'm stuck with me, and that can get annoying.
I appreciate you saying that word, because I've had different very spiritual people be like, don't say you're annoying, then you're just going to reinforce that belief about yourself, Annie. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm annoying sometimes. I annoy myself sometimes. Like, what I can it be both? Like, can I love and accept the annoyance and
Mm-hmm.
also say, okay, well, maybe I'm just irritable more than I'm being annoying, or maybe it's
I
neither, or it
definitely,
doesn't matter.
I
Like, would you
absolutely
tell a
love.
friend, who calls you being like, yo, like, Hyatt, I'm having a rough time. Like, you're like, you're fucking annoying. Like,
Yeah, I love and accept all those parts of me. Like the annoying part of myself, I'm like so happy and thrilled about. I feel so much more connected with myself when I can express like I'm annoying sometimes. It's like this thing that like I feel it in my body, but I'm like, no, it's not there. Like, uh, yeah, I like being able to kind of play with that part of myself. Be like, yeah, you're a little annoying sometimes, and I love you.
which is totally, again, how we would talk to someone else. Like, if we were annoyed
If
by
we were
their
actually
behavior,
annoyed
it'd
and
be
being
like,
authentic.
hmm. I wondered too with that one if it's like a stigma of it being, like, oh, don't tell someone they're being annoying or that you're annoyed, or then we're going to have to sit down with nonviolent communication, the book, and be like, I feel this when you did this. And I'm not saying you're annoying. And in fact, I'm probably projecting my own annoyances onto you. And also, I'm fucking annoyed right now. Like, what are you
Yeah,
doing? What's happening?
yeah,
It's kind of like it feels related to the, like, you posting about, like, here's what I ate today and here's the dollars that I spent on it, of like, this is me on this day, and here's a thing that, like,
yeah.
here's
And I
the thing
notice
that's really here.
I can love myself a lot more, like that part of myself that is just sort of eating. Because normally I'd be like, oh God, I hope like none of my friends come in and see me. I hope nobody that has seen my YouTube channel, some like random person on the street is like, oh, that's that guy from YouTube, and what is he eating? And now I feel so much more freedom around it. Like if someone just came up to me, like a friend or whatever, and saw me eating it, I just be like, yeah, this is what I'm eating, and like not have anything around it.
Because you're like, I have to appear consistent to other humans, and like I do the things I say I do, and in this way, and how dare I show my humanness ever?
And just like we were talking about, keeping that shame in the dark just kind of like feeds into it even more. Like, oh, I have to keep hiding this, keep hiding this.
How would you feel if you saw a fruitarian YouTuber like eating rice and beans out?
I'd probably be like, well, that's not surprising. I feel like that's probably a lot more common than most people think.
Or even a vegan YouTuber eating something not vegan out. To me, I get that, and I really admire that. Hey, I don't want to put anything out on the internet that isn't authentic to me, is a lot of what I'm hearing here. And also, again, my intention with part of my intention there is to say, like, again, how would you treat someone else in this scenario? Or like if you saw someone who was like, promoted health, or just who you put in this box of like, this person values health through healthy foods, and you saw them eating a bag of chips, would you be like, you suck? Like,
no, not at all. Yeah, I don't think I would have much opinion change, because first of all, I probably didn't form much of an opinion around them in the first place. And I don't know if they were like a hero of mine or something, like they were the ones that got me to go fruitarian or something. I saw them eating like some fish and rice or something like that. Yeah, at this point, I don't think I would really care. I just noticed how much I change so often, and how much when I talk about it and be open about it more and more, like, and I'm vulnerable about it, how much everybody else is sharing that, like, oh yeah, I'm also eating like not vegan. Also, I've had some meat this year, like, and I'm like, oh, pretty much like everyone slips up like this or is changed, and we're all afraid and ashamed, and we're afraid that people are going to find out because we've put our image in their mind, and now that's how they think of us. And like, it's scary to think that maybe they could think the other way and not like us anymore or something. So I think I would have a lot of compassion for someone like that, and not a lot of judgment.
we're back also on humans as label making machines of like, well, I'm a vegan, I'm a fruitarian, this is what I do, or this is whatever. And also that part you brought up of our desires to be attractive and for people to view us mentally, physically, spiritually as attractive as a human, because we're like, well, I must procreate because this is what's in my body biologically, or I need touch and oxytocin or whatever it is. To share some vulnerably for me, I was vegetarian for a long time and then vegan, and now I ate meat for the first time living in LA. I'd had some when I was like 9 to like, because of being told to try it, and then didn't want to, and then was like, I really want this. And I had a really strong craving for salmon and for runny egg yolks when I was still vegan, like so intensely. And when I had eaten eggs before, I thought that runny yolks were so gross. Like, it was the grossest thing to me ever. And like, fish had sounded gross and looked gross and hadn't appealed to me until it was so tangible. And like that thing you did where you like looked over, where you're like, I'm not going to act like this feeling isn't there.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, this is, if I'm just like wanting to be in this box of this label, then I'm ignoring this feeling that is here. Like, I'm ignoring this truth of what is coming up. And for me right now, I'm like, well, where else are you going to? Another dogma of currently believing or feeling that veganism is not what is the quote healthiest diet for everyone all the time, and fruitarian. I was like, we're meant to be frugivores, and I don't feel that way now. Mm-hmm. And I feel like maybe that works for some people, or that has worked at some time, or maybe we have no idea because we're weird beings who have gone through so many different evolutions and things. And also maybe it matters less than all of this intensity I've put on it. And maybe it's going to be different for different people. And so how to come back to that root of how to have that same compassion I would have to someone else on their food journey to have on mine. I don't know, do you resonate at all with this of like, oh, well, if I figure out food, then like I figured out how to human, I figured out how to like, you know, be attractive, to be connected to myself, to be spiritual, to like, it's like, oh, if I can master this, then I can master some other thing.
I mean, it does seem like some integral part for me. Uh, like I do feel my best when I'm eating the way I want, and it seems to be my biggest like attachment, my biggest challenge in this lifetime is food. Like by far crushes every other addiction or craving that I have, or like dogma around anything else is food, for sure. And I still have some belief in me that like we're frugivores and that like people probably would feel a lot better if they were eating a fruitarian diet and like clear pretty much all of their illness. That's still like a small belief that I have.
I have that belief still in me somewhere too, for the podcast
Yeah.
record, or that and the belief that a lot of people would benefit from doing it for some period of time, if not.
but I think I'm coming to more and more that like this is just sort of my, however you want to label it, like karmic thing, and this might be just way more important for me than other people. Like this is just some deep thing, and I don't know why it's here, but it's so deep in me, and this is just like my personal thing that I have to work out. And yeah, maybe it's not true for other people.
Ooh, so how do you honor both of those truths of this is my truth and this is not someone else's truth? Like still honoring the part of you that says I feel my most Hyatt when I eat mostly melons, and also the
Yeah.
part that says that other person isn't Hyatt.
I don't know. I think diet has like become less and less important to me when it comes to dealing with other people. Like I always honor what I think is best for me, and I pretty much never talk about diet unless people ask about it. But yeah, and I think it's that same thing of like I can't really feel what's going on in your body. Like I imagine if you ate this way, you would feel better. But I don't know how to go about like kind of planting that seed, and like would I even want to? Like why am I trying to change you and your reality? Like I want you to also work out what you need to work out. Because sometimes I feel like my biggest epiphanies and like my biggest like shadow work and like quantum leaps have happened from going crazy on like cooked food and just like having horrible nights. And then like sometimes that's where my most poetic and beautiful like pieces of art and poetry come from, and where I can go really deep into my own discomfort and kind of be with that. So it seems like you know, these things could potentially be the medicine. Like somebody was talking about how like the poison is the medicine, like the medicine is the poison until you realize that it's the medicine or something like that. They're pretty much the same thing. I don't know if that made any sense, but
Yeah, well, I'm still sitting with the medicine is the poison. And I feel that in terms of my own experiences with my own working with my shadows and my inner parts, and the ways that when I've eaten a lot of junk food in a day and smoked a lot of spliffs in a day, I've learned so much from that.
yeah.
And I've learned and then berated myself for that. And then I've learned so much from that too.
Mm-hmm.
And part of also honoring, okay, well, what decision do I want to make right now today? What do asking myself those questions of what do I feel most me with and what do I feel best with, is having the contrast of all sorts of different experiences. Like how to open yourself up to, you know, like how would you know how you felt about stealth camping if you'd never done it?
Yeah, and that's a big thing for me, is just kind of being this this sort of like pioneer, like you try and look up these things that just either they're not available, the information is not available the way you want it, or like people's experiences are going to be different than yours. So you just have to be brave and like go out there and do it and figure out like how it feels for you. Like we always want somebody else to do it first so we know what's like safe and how we can kind of follow that. But a lot of the time there's just no like real trail because it's always going to be different anyways. You just have to like go out there with some fear and some courage, and probably, get a little like a little slapped by life, but then you know how to do it better, and then you get more comfortable. Um, yeah, and then I think that's where a lot of just confidence and comfort with being like uncomfortable comes from, and where I can learn the most about myself. Just like going out there with a lot of fear. Like I'm probably going to be scared and I'm probably going to want to go home and I'm going to do this anyways.
And is compassion what helps guide you through that, or helps keep you, sitting in the ice bath metaphor?
I'm sure that it is at many points. I can remember times when like I've been out and I'm just like not anywhere near home. Maybe I don't have any sort of shelter and it's like raining and I'm cold, and I just want like a fireplace and a blanket and a chocolate chip cookie. And so I get really compassionate for that part of myself that's just like wants comfort and wants my mom, and wants a home. And then like the next day it's just like, like really beautiful. And it's hard to be compassionate when I'm in it, I think.
That's a really real part of the practice for me too. And also how to have compassion for that part that wants comfort, and just say, again, how would you talk to someone else if they're like, I really like these creature comforts? You'd be like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, me too.
Yeah.
Does that feel like a big part of the practice ever to you? Or like, so I'm projecting from my experience with minimalism, I took it to an extreme where I felt like I really judged myself for wanting comforts and for caring about comfort. And so for my navigating and my journey, it's been how to honor that minimalist part of me that says it feels really good to not have a ton of stuff, to be able to move around easily and just generally not to have a bunch of stuff to keep in my headspace. And also it feels really good to have a hot shower. Mm-hmm. And how to integrate, to connect those parts that are both there.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious if like it ever like stopped swinging and just like somehow there's some perfect middle path. Because for me, I think right now I really enjoy exploring the extremes and going back and forth. Like, okay, I went this far, now I can go a little further this way. Okay, now I can go a little further out here. And just, it seems like I want to just keep going back and forth and see like how far I can get or something. Like, I don't really want the middle path right now. It sounds a little boring. And
oh, I resonate with that so much of like, I know the middle path is great and is there. And also, how am I going to know about the boundaries if I don't constantly push them and make sure I touch each wall?
Yeah, and sometimes I wonder if like the middle path even is there. Like, right? I think so many people talk about it. It's like, but I don't really see anybody living that way who has just like no problems and they're just like calm and steady their entire life.
Right? I mean, the people I can think of that are the closest to that are people who meditate for 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
Then like, that's a really big life commitment of other things that are then happening for that to happen.
Yeah.
That's also too with how connection goes and this whole humaning thing, that there isn't this point of figuring it out and being like, I know and I'm done and I'm like, I'm on the middle path and I'm on the straight and narrow and I'm just I'm here not moving, or I'm here going in an exactly straight.
And even if you're on the middle path, I imagine you wouldn't want to be on that forever. I think there would come a point, maybe an entire lifetime, possibly, I don't know, but probably not forever. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it's the fun paradox of part of consistency is inconsistency.
Yeah.
Maybe so part of that middle path is exploring the extremes, or
Yeah.
the parts where like you're mostly on the middle path and also you're constantly passing through it, or staying
Yeah,
off of it for some period of time, and then it's like, are you net on the middle path over your life? And I kind of feel like we all are, even if we act like maybe we're not. Now I'm really getting into like free will and the river direction. Like we
yeah.
aren't we all on the middle path? Like here we're existing.
Yeah, it's funny. It got all like intertwined for me when you said that. Like, wait, the middle path. The middle path is an extreme.
Whoa, say more on that.
Yeah. Just because how you said that, trying to think about exactly what you said, but it's like, yeah, because like you said, the people that you see doing that who are just like steady and calm all day are like meditating 12 hours a day, and that's pretty freaking extreme, I think. Like to devote your whole life to something like that. That's really like what people would call extreme. And I like what you said about how aren't we all on the middle path? Like this is just I don't think there is a middle. Like the middle path just disappeared after hearing you say that. I was like, it's all just happening.
If there's no middle path, then what standard of perfection can we self-berate to?
Whatever one you want to create.
Oh my gosh. Because again, it's like looking at other people. I would say, oh, they're on their middle path, like they're navigating and figuring it out, and duality is a fun trip, and having compassion with it all and compassion too with that desire of like, well, if I know what the middle path is, then I can figure out how to human, and I've done the thing, and I can predict the future, and I can see the connections between all things. So I know it's, rather than.
It's like we all think that there's this point that we can just like reach and then we're set. But even if you reach that point, then there's another point.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that was some of my experience in different spiritual, and especially with like with some of how I felt with food dogmas I put on myself, was like, this is what you're going to do, or like this meditation practice, or this thing, to then like your objective is this enlightenment, this thing where you're not in a body, you're not and I was like, hold on, what if my objective is to be super in my body, is to be superhuman, like superhuman in the sense of super fucking human, where we're confused and messy and total paradoxes.
Yeah, that's kind of that's where I'm at. That's my jam right now. It's being superhuman in the.
Oh no! Hello?
That's good for me.
Wait, you cut out.
Oh, okay.
It said that's your jam. You said that's my jam right now, being superhuman.
Yeah, being messy and vulnerable, and being more in my body and not trying to like escape it or something. Like I used to think that I just needed to meditate all the time and like be one with everything. Really enjoying this more than I think I care about this experience of being human.
And does that feel more connected to you then, to like, rather than because then you're connecting those messy parts, you're connecting that fear part,
Yeah, I mean, I think I enjoy like different practices that produce both things. Like I still meditate a lot, but yeah, I'm definitely embracing and accepting more of my humanness, where before I was trying to like reject my ego or something like that, and now it's like, oh, yeah.
cut out a little after you said reject my ego. I definitely experienced a lot of that too, of the label of toxic positivity, and also this hyper need to self-improve and ego-driven, I got to be my best self, and like ego-driven soul evolution rather than compassion for what is there.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you can hear me okay, because I think my phone might be like heating up a bit.
Oh, it was just about to, yeah, it was just cutting out again. Any last thoughts, feelings, comments, questions, concerns, things you'd really like to have recorded here? I really appreciate you being open to talk about food and connection and all of these things with such compassion. Interwebs. Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
We're back!
Okay, I'm wondering, can you hear me okay now?
I can hear you very well now.
Okay.
The
Maybe it was
video
the
is
mic that
grainy,
was...
the audio quality is fabulous.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just really...
No! Ah, cut out! Oh,
Okay,
you're back. It
it's
came back with
okay.
you laughing.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, I don't really have anything off the top of my head to share.
Nothing on the spot of what is compassion and interconnection, and we definitely got into a lot of flowing around it with it.
Yeah, I think
The no middle
that,
path is going to be with me for the rest of.
I don't think that I could ever give like what it is. I think exploring it or not knowing is like the engine that drives me or something. Like if I knew what it was, then I wouldn't maybe care so much about it or something. Like I hope I never know what it is and I just keep exploring it.
I love that. Right before we started recording, when I said we don't figure it out, we don't get to the end of this podcast and we know what compassion is and interconnection, and we figured it all out, you say, yeah, and you were like, yeah, we'll leave with more questions.
Yeah.
Ooh, I love that as the engine, as the part of that fire of compassion, that curiosity to understand more. It cut out again.
Yeah, I didn't say anything, but
I really appreciate you and this podcast and this
me
flowing
too.
through that existent and non-existent middle path of feeling the warm fuzzies and feeling warm fuzzies for the cold, sharp bees. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
Having me. Love you so much, Annie. I think you're awesome.
I love you so much. I think you're awesome too. And I'm excited to podcast again in the next edition of the non-existent middle path.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks for being you.